Greetings, my friends. Welcome to the next episode of the Mint Mob Podcast. Jason here, joined by my buddy Alex across the pond in Germany. We're going to jump into the markets, artwork, and a whole bunch of other things. Maybe even a little psychology today. We'll see what happens. But first, let's check in with my man Alex. What's going on, buddy? Good to see your smiling face over there.
Yeah, for the second time, dude. It's the second date today. It's still special, I think. But yeah, great to be here again and jumping a little bit into art. As most people know, you and I, we are creating our galleries. And when I came, like I told you already, like for some reason, animated art speaks so much to me. I'm thinking about getting a frame back here, like a digital frame. And I think I should be able to use my phone. And I'm not sure if digital frames can actually play MP4s or GIFs. Do you know?
I haven't looked into them, but I would imagine that they could. I can't think of a reason why they wouldn't.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool, I think. Still have to obviously ask my fiance, but I'd love to have them in my hallway as well, and
Yeah.
have some kind of loop playing on it, and have digital and still art, not digital moving and still art combined. That would be pretty cool, I think. There are some digital frames on Amazon. I saw them around $100, pretty reasonable in my opinion, but I'm not sure if the resolution is good though, but I'll definitely have to check out. I hope that you already got one and could recommend one, but unfortunately I don't see any
Yeah,
digital
no.
frames in the back.
No digital frames, man. The television that we have does digital art. You can upload art to it, but it's a TV, so it doesn't really work the same way. But yeah, the digital art frames, those are really, really cool. So if you find a
Mm.
good one, you'll have to recommend it to all of us bosses in the community.
What's interesting is when I found digital art, like I keep saying digital art when I mean animated art, but when I look at it, I feel like sometimes it conveys a different feeling for some reason, and it's crazy because most of them are like nostalgic, almost a little yeah, they almost always like night landscapes, with stars in the back, a lot of smoke for some reason. A glitch art, I saw you got someone who created a Goodfellas piece,
Yeah.
which was pretty cool as well. And for some reason, right now, these are like my favorites, and I'll definitely need to get hands on some. Um, do you feel like how is it different to create still images? Like, do you feel all that art is created by AI, or do you feel like there are people out there video editing that kind of stuff?
I think a lot of what I've purchased has been video edited. I mean, they may use AI or different tools to scramble the pixels, like in the case of glitch art, for example. But the files that I got from, I think the artist's name is Akashi. I'll have to look, or I can't remember. I'll have to go back and look. So I apologize. But yeah, the artwork that he was doing is super cool, right? So Metalhead, obviously one of our bosses, turned us on to glitch art. He's got a few pieces in the AI. And then when I saw this other artist, I think Akash, I'll have to look it up. But I tagged Metalhead and I was like, dude, this is pretty cool, yeah. And so he was chiming in, and so I ended up working a deal and buying a couple pieces, mainly because he just absolutely created that piece on the fly. I didn't ask him to create that boss piece; he just did it. So he showed it to me. I was like, dude, I got to buy it now, So let's work a deal. So we worked a deal, and he sent it over, and the file's like 40 megabyte, right? So it's a huge file. If it were an MP4, it'd probably be 3 or 4 megabytes at most. But because it's a GIF and all of those different glitchy pieces in there, my guess is he probably took a bunch of high res images and then put them in different frames. And that's a manual process, I would think. And obviously there's some tools that can help you do that, but still, I think the art in this particular piece would be taking the image and then doing different glitch versions of it and then putting them together with different time frames. Like this frame lasts longer than the next frame or whatever the case may be to create that visual. So he did that one, and then I got another one from him that was like a 3-dimensional samurai suit, and it's kind of spinning, and it's got this little, sort of glitchy feel to it. Yeah, so like that type of stuff, huge files, very, very cool stuff. Definitely will do more with him, and I'm sure he would end up hooking you up with some stuff as well if you're digging the animated pieces, especially the glitch stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Funny thing is, the first piece I saw was the Goodfellas one with the frame, and when I saw that, I felt like, okay, that might be like just a filter, right? Like I'll put a filter on it, and I felt like I could do that anytime. But then I saw the Samurai, and then I realized, okay, the glitch effect is different, so it's not like probably not just a filter.
Mhm.
But when I saw Metalhead, I felt like, does he have animated pieces? Like I think that would fit great to his art, right?
It would, yeah. I haven't seen it yet. I mean, the whole glitch art thing, I think lives perfectly with animations because obviously it comes from that era, like early video games, early VHS tapes, early television, so it was born in movement and in animation. So I think it actually is the perfect medium for animation, to be honest with you.
When I saw all these artists in the last couple of days, I realized that many of them have like thousands of followers, and they get a lot of engagement, and people love to see that. And I just wondered, like, I see these posts, and people just usually give their pieces a name, and that's all they post. Like when you scroll down their timeline, you see all these posts, and I felt like, okay, what's their approach when it comes to promotion, and how is that different from what the artists we know do? Because obviously the artists we've worked with, look at Hannah, look at Daisy, look at Julie. Hannah and Julie are the same, right? But but they build connections with their collectors, right? While the other guys seem to, the art spoke for itself and promoted itself. That's at least how it looked like. What do you think is the difference in the art of promo they did?
I think a lot of it comes down to time in the marketplace, but you can make up a lot of ground if you start building relationships. And this is the thing we were talking about off mic earlier. The relationship building piece has been sorely lacking from Web3 for, I mean, ever since I've been involved in it. I mean, and I think a big obstacle and impediment to that, of course, is the anonymity. But even with the anonymity, there's ways to connect with people around what they enjoy. And I think people forget that, behind every one of these, X handles or whatever you want to call them is a real human being in most cases. So if you can just realize that the person you're speaking to on the other end of the line is a real human with human needs, and you can address those needs with your art or with a product or with a service or with a relationship or with just a communication of, hey, I care about what you're doing. I mean, all of these things are going to solidify relationships. And then, of course, if you can do that with people who have an affinity toward the look and feel of what you're creating, then you're going to be that much better off. And so I think a lot of these people who've been in the market so far have jumped into a bunch of different little artwork type groups and collectors groups where they support one another. And it sort of started from there. And now I'm seeing more artists start to branch out. They realize that that's a limitation, because you're only going to sell to people who quote unquote like you or have you, or they're your friends because you bought something from them and blah blah blah. But these guys are actually in the marketplace promoting every day, and whether they're asking for a sell or not, like Julie or Gleam Squad or Mermeow, all of these guys are in the marketplace, and they are putting their artwork up and saying, this is what I'm doing. And so they're inviting people to take a look at what they're doing, whether they're consciously saying the words or not. And it's every day, multiple times every single day, and then you'll see them sell a piece, and this multiple posts, work. Thank you. Build the relationship, sell the piece. It's always the same thing, right? Like sales is sales no matter what you're selling. And, obviously with Web3 being what it is and relationships being harder to build, I think there's more of a barrier there, but it's not one that can't be overcome with a little bit of extra work for sure.
When you take a generative collection of 10,000 pieces, do you think that approach changes over time? Like, especially when you get like 2,000, 3,000 holders, do you think people still have that one, that collection to every, not collection, to connection to everything single holder? Or do you think it changes when you get like a bigger audience?
It's hard to say with generative collections of old. And when I say of old, what I mean is these people who are just throwing pieces out all at once, trying to mint everything out all at once. Because those pieces were sold based on a hyped up promise in most cases. We're going to build this, we're going to build that, buy this piece, mint that piece, and you can participate in whatever it is that we're doing. But of course, most of these people in most cases had no real backing, no real vision, no real ability to create what they said they were going to create. And that created a lot of distrust. And so the relationship piece became one of, you told me you were going to do something, excuse me. You told me you were going to do something, but you didn't do it. And therefore, I no longer like you, trust you, want to purchase your stuff or whatever the case may be. I don't believe that you're going to actually follow through. That's what I think of when I think of like the original generative collections. With the generative collection, the way that we're doing it's a little bit different. So when we're launching in small batches of pieces, the whole idea is to grow the community with the collection, so that the inflation rates, quote unquote, of both is somewhat equivalent. So like if we pick up a high quality collector and they want to participate, then okay, when we do the next batch, we have more pieces for everyone who was already with us, plus the new people as well. And this slow growth model actually helps us build relationships when we choose to plug into that, because we have more time to connect and learn who these people are, see what they're buying, see how they interact, see what they care about, and then touch on all of those things. And like a good example for me personally would just be being introduced to Lucia, for example. She's in Spain. And, when I was growing up, I studied Spanish. And so, I watch her posts and I can read a little bit and sort of understand what she's posting in Spanish. And so I'll respond and I'll very playfully, just have a conversation with her and put my little broken Spanish, my imperfect Spanish responses up there. And, we have a little thing going back and forth. And that's just one way we connect, right? And then when she started getting the 13s, that's another way we could connect, because I had a few 13s and I could send them to her because that was what she was after, Same thing with Maria. Like Maria's interested in the 14s. So if I send her 14s, or we have a conversation about art, or she's doing another piece, or she's participating in the event, these are all different ways we can connect. And you can't do that at scale in a short period of time. It takes an investment, I think of Mark, I think of STC, I think of Larry or Law, I think of Chris, all of these people in the community who've been with us for a long period of time. I sort of understand a little bit about what they're going for. Like if someone says Mark or Matic Addict to me, then I immediately think, oh, that dude loves green stuff. I know he loves the green stuff. That's just part of his thing. And, that's super cool. I know that he wants the 12s, I know a little bit about his life in the Pacific Northwest because he shared that with us, right? And all of this stuff takes time and interaction. So I think with the OG generative collections, you got none of that. It was just, hey, buy our shit because we're going to actually do something. And of course, they never did anything. And nowadays, I don't think that model works really at all. And it's all about person to person, belly to belly, one-to-one sales. Hey, take a look at this group. Take a look at Goodfellas. This is what they're doing. They're catering to collectors. And it takes time to explain all that. So, when we were talking earlier off mic and you're doing some of the marketing, I'm like, dude, you got to go faster. You got to step it up. You got to put more pieces out, right? And, we had that conversation because it takes multiple exposures for someone to understand what you want. I think the last time I looked at the ad stats, it took 17 exposures for one person before they ever even thought about buying a product from that particular advertiser. So 17 exposures, and that's an average. So that means most people would have been more, like at least half the people would have been more than that, right? So it's one of those things that I think a lot of people just don't consider.
Okay, so you said generative collections mainly based on hype.
Yeah.
And for us, it's more about building connections. Would you say that marketing works the same regardless of what you sell?
Absolutely, because human psychology is the same regardless of what you're selling. I have a coaching practice. My wife has a coaching practice. We own a couple rental properties right now. Like when we're selling someone on being a tenant, or selling someone on being a coaching client, or in your case, selling a car, or whatever the case may be, we're all solving a problem for someone. And the thing about Goodfellas is the problem that we seek to solve is one of being a place in Web3 that's safe for collectors. if you're a collector, you need to be with other people who are like-minded and who have an affinity toward helping you acquire and build a collection that you can be proud of. And that's really what Goodfellas is about. So creating new IP and, creating little utilities, some of the stuff that I'm working on right now is all about that. The roles are about that. The collections are about that. And so it's just about solving that problem and having conversations around what people really want. And, obviously it takes time and it's always hard because not everyone's willing to give you honest feedback. So sometimes you have to sift and sort through, what the words that they're saying and read between the lines. And, still, even then it's like, tell me what you really think or feel. It's not going to hurt my feelings. I'm not going to cry in the corner because you're honest with me. Just, give it to me straight. Like, what am I doing good? What am I not doing good? What is it that you see is lacking in the marketplace? What do you see that's good in the marketplace? And then you start kind of filling in those gaps, And so as we go into the rest of the year, no matter what you're selling, whether it's artwork or selling someone on an idea, really every sale is selling an idea, right? Like if I buy a piece from like the glitch artist that I mentioned earlier, I'm selling him on the idea that I want to mint it in a collection that's not his. And this is something he hadn't thought of before, right? So I have to sell him on the idea that this actually is good for us both because it mirrors reality. So we have that conversation. And if I'm selling art, same thing. Like, do you like this particular style? I'm looking for someone who has the problem of, I can't get enough of this particular style or this particular coloration or this particular format, right? Like you were talking about animated art. So if someone approaches you that does animated art and they offer it to you, they're trying to solve a problem for you because you're trying to acquire it. So right now the push really needs to be on a consolidation to quality around everything that we do in terms of putting out quality messaging to attract more collectors, because that's really what we're about. We're not trying to be anything other than a service to high quality collectors and continue to bring beautiful things to life. And then of course, whatever that looks like, we have to lean into and become masters of it, right? So yeah, everything comes down to human psychology. So no matter what you're selling or what the particular transaction looks like, it's all psychology. It's all filling a need. Very few people are going to be browbeat into buying something from you. And if you do that to them, they're never going to buy from you again because they're not going to appreciate the experience. So relationships, what do you want? What do you need? How can I serve you? Coming from that place of service is really what Goodfellas is all about.
It's actually quite interesting. You mentioned that marketing always works the same, of course, but like, I was kind of wondering, obviously that's very like a lot of talk about marketing right now, but when it comes to selling random items, let's just pick, I don't know, let's just pick this ball here. This is a soccer ball for the audience right now. Jason's not familiar to this, he only knows footballs. But if you sell a random item, let's say e-commerce, how does that work marketing wise? Because obviously the seller has no connection to the buyer, correct?
Yeah.
So what's the difference here? Is all that conveyed through the ad that's being, online?
Those sales are actually easier because they don't require relationships. So if you need a soccer ball, if you're a soccer player, a football player, if you play football in Europe and you need a new ball, right? What are you going to do? You got to have it.
Yeah, wait, but there are plenty of. How can I
That's
sell
right.
this one? There are plenty of, right?
There are plenty of them, right? So that ball that you're holding, I don't know the brand, but whatever brand it is, it's going to be different in some way from a different brand. Maybe they have a spokesperson that you like. Maybe that one's leather. Maybe the one that's beside it is made out of pleather or some vinyl nonsense that's going to break the minute it hits concrete. So like at the end of the day, like all of these things factor into what the person wants and needs. So if I played soccer for many, many years growing up, and so I always wanted a leather ball, and I always had to have an Adidas ball, and I always had to have Adidas cleats. Like that was my thing. And so I always wanted that brand because to me that represented soccer at that era, at that point in time, right? So you couldn't have sold me any other type of ball because that was the one I wanted. That was the need that I had. The idea that I had was Adidas was the brand because I saw it in the World Cup and I saw it on the biggest stages and I wanted the same ball, right? So it's just a need. It's a different way of creating a need. So you can do that through celebrity. You can do that through exposure. You can do that through quality. You can do that through exclusivity. Like if, for example, you're in the car world, like if I showed up at the Ferrari dealership today and I'm like, hey, I have $2 million. I want to buy a Ferrari. They'd be like, sorry, we don't sell. That's not how we sell cars. We don't have a relationship with you. You got to jump through a bunch of hoops. You've got to buy a used one and this and that and the other thing before we'll actually take a new car order from you, right? You have to be invited into the club. So Ferrari is selling exclusivity, right? So if I wanted to buy a Ferrari cash today, I'd have to buy a used one. Dealership won't sell me one, right? So, when you think of what people are actually selling, it just comes down to what need are they filling? And someone who has a lot of money can buy anything in the world, right? Like you can't buy exclusivity if someone is, sort of blocking you out. So this is one of those things. It's another exclusivity hoop to jump through. Now I'm gaining status because now I'm on Ferrari's buy list. I can get the car I want, You can't do that. I can do that though, right? So it's like a way of separating and sorting, creating status. Like in this particular moment, like if the Ferrari example is perfect because if you have all the money in the world, you can buy whatever you want, but Ferrari says no. And you and your friends are like, well, my friend has a Ferrari. Well, so I don't give a shit. Like we're not selling one to you. So your friend still has more status. So you want the status, you've got to jump through Ferrari's hoops to get it, right? And it's the same with anything. Like it doesn't matter what the product is, whether it's digital, physical, or service-based. It's just about what need does this person have and how well can I fill it from, a product offering standpoint.
It's actually funny because you mentioned like the status, and that's how luxury brands work, right? Because if you take clothes, for example, like a shirt or whatever, there is a certain point where it's kind of where the quality doesn't get any better, right? Like you can have a shirt for like $80 or $100. Anything above is not worth in terms of better quality, and still, there are brands out there, Gucci, Prada, I don't know, who sell shirts for like $600, right? And it's all about like, they usually, or Balenciaga, for example, they have these big brand names on their shirts, so people know it's from Balenciaga and not from anything else. And this is actually, do you think a painting can be worth $1 million because of, the artist had such a great skill?
It's a good question because it depends on the buyer, right? I mean, the product and the market have to line up. So when we say product market fit, if I'm trying to sell a Monet to you, right? Like, hey, here's a $2 million Monet, Alex, you should really go to the bank, take out a loan, spend all your money, sell your house, forget getting married and buy this painting. You'd be like, you're a fucking idiot. That's never going to happen. I'm not going to do that, right? Because, like me, you don't have $2 million sitting around that you can just burn. It wouldn't matter, right? So if I'm selling a Monet for $2 million, first of all, I have to be in the right market, right? It has to be the right person, the right buyer. So in the world of art, and knowing that Monet paintings are anywhere from 150 to 200 years old from that era, I would be looking for collectors from that era who are diehard collectors in the upper echelon of income brackets. And those are the people that I would target. And I would go through art galleries to do that, right? Because again, that particular sale might be because the person loves Monet's brushstrokes, right? Or it could be he loves Monet's brushstrokes and his neighbor can't buy that painting if he has that painting, right? So it's two things. Like I love the artwork and my neighbor can't own it if I own it. So I have a little bit more status in my circle of friends, And so it really comes down to the buyer and how the buyer meets the product and how the seller presents it as to who ends up with it, right? But in that case, you're still solving a problem, whether it was the brush strokes on the painting or the exclusivity or a combination thereof, you're still solving one of those problems.
Yeah, that's true. And it's actually so interesting to remember that you need to be in the environment of the right people to get acknowledged for what you own, right? It's like the same with comics. When you have like the #1 Spider-Man comic and you're among people who've never read comics, They're never going to, value what you have. And by the way, I read a pretty interesting article today that said it was actually from the United States. The average comic shop customer is between 40 and 50. And I thought of you, and that was quite interesting because it made like a comparison between comics, which is more of like very, very successful in the United States, but more of a niche in other countries, and manga, which is way, I didn't know that, which is way more successful overall, and around the globe. And they made like comparisons with numbers and all that stuff, and I felt like that's interesting because I felt like comics were way more successful because it got all these iconic heroes, Superman, these franchises, movies and all that stuff. And then you see that these Japanese, drawings are like on another level. It's not even close. And yeah, just a little fun fact. Did you know, or did you expect? Are you surprised, or are you like, yeah, it's pretty like expectable?
No, it's expectable. A lot of comic shops sell manga. So, when you'll see, if you go to a comic shop, you'll see they'll sell toys, they'll sell all different types of collectibles and manga and comics and books, even in a lot of cases. It just depends on the comic shop, right? But back in the early days of comics, when these things were first created, comics were 10 cents in the 30s, and you would sell, I think publishers were selling anywhere from like 1 million to 2 million copies per month of a particular comic at 10 cents a pop, right? And today, like a very successful comic will sell maybe 40,000 comics a month.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. And actually, if you're curious about this stuff, there's a great documentary on Prime. It's called Selling Superman. There's a guy whose dad was a huge comic collector. He ended up acquiring 300,000 comics over the course of his life. And one of the comics he had was the Superman #1, Batman #1, and then he had multiple copies of lots of key issues like Werewolf by Night and Hulk 181, which is the first appearance of Wolverine, like all these different, Amazing Fantasy 15, first appearance of Spider-Man, 150 copies of Star Wars #1, 100 copies of like all these different key issues, right? And so his whole story is about how his dad basically turned into this guy who collected all these comics and filled the whole house up with boxes and boxes of comics, and how no one could ever touch them or look at them or see them. They couldn't talk about them. They couldn't tell anyone they had them because of the values. The dad didn't want to leave the house because he was afraid something might happen while he was gone, and this guy's working as a lawyer his whole life until death, and he just continues to buy comics. So now his family's inherited all these comics, and they're categorizing them and selling them. And he's sitting on maybe $8 to $10 million worth of comics, right? But these comics were from that era when a 10-cent comic or a 50-cent comic was selling 500,000, 1 million copies a month. And there wasn't a lot of competition in terms of title, and people were not keeping them. You bought a comic, you rolled it up, you put it in your pocket, you traded it with your friend, it got all bent up and destroyed, it got thrown in the trash. So not a lot of those books survived. Today, when you're collecting comics, a lot of times the comic shops will put them in a bag and give them a board for you. Like you buy the comic in a bag and board. And so it's immediately preserved. You're not going to wad it up and put it in your pocket, So it's different today than it was then. And the exclusivity comes from the fact that the scarcity of those early issues is what's driving the value, because everybody wants them, right? Everybody wants them. And so who can afford them? Middle-aged people. Like you have to have a job to be able to pay $800 for a comic book. It's crazy. So I think most action figure collectors, most comic collectors, most of that pop culture that was so amazing in that like 80s, like 70s, 80s, early 90s era, before we got everybody went cell phone, that all of the stuff from that era is highly collectible because it was such a beautiful time to be alive. And, I think younger people are starting to realize that maybe they missed out on something. And so you're starting to see the children of these collectors come in, and they're being exposed to some of these titles, and they're doing this with dad or doing this with mom or whatever. It's becoming like a bonding experience. But yeah, I mean, in terms of total sales, the number of titles today versus the number of titles from the early days is off the charts different. So you're not just competing to get someone's attention. It's the same thing in like the shitcoin market, right? Like there's a million shitcoins. Which one do you buy? And how much of the liquidity gets broken up across the shitcoins? Same thing with comic titles. How much of the liquidity gets broken up across the comic titles? You know, your major's always going to be there, but they're never going to sell a million copies a month anymore.
When it comes to these first editions, it's about the condition of the piece as well, right? Like it needs to be good.
Yeah, absolutely. It has to be great. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, wifey just walked in. Yeah, it has to be good. I mean, and you want them graded. So this particular collection, and the documentary is really short. I think it's 4 episodes, maybe 3 or 4 hours in total. So you can watch it over the course of a few lunch breaks. But like at the end of the day, like this guy ends up with all these comics. He's already a successful guy. He doesn't need the money. And so the whole story is really about how he wasn't able to connect with his dad over this hobby because it became sort of a wedge that drove them apart because he was like hoarding them and like he was like Gollum with the ring, you know, like precious, I'm not going to share it kind of a thing. And so like this guy has embraced the fact that he has an opportunity with all of these key issues to like make a huge splash in the collector world. And so the major grading outlets, CGC and PCG, I think is the other one, or PGM, I can't remember the acronym. The grading houses will grade the comics and they'll lock them into a piece of plastic, and it's called slabbing. So they'll slab the comics, and once they're slabbed, they're sealed and they're graded, and that grade is recorded with a serial number. And once it's recorded with a serial number, you can look at a price guide and you can see this is how much it's going to go for or how much it's generally worth. And of course, we saw in November, Superman #1 sold for $9.12 million, right? This guy's holding a Superman with a grade 7 on it, a Superman #1. So it's minimum 5 million, 4 or 5 million minimum, right? And he could sell that at any auction. So, I mean, when you look at where the collectibles market has gone and where it can continue to go, I mean, we have a lot of room to grow in the digital sphere, but I mean, the people who can afford it still, even in NFTs, they're going to be 30s, 40s, 50s, or even older because you need disposable income. That's the key. You got to have some sort of disposable income or you can't participate.
Yeah, now that you say it, like when you look at the NFT space, there are not too many people out there around the age of 18, 20, 21, right? Like it's more of like 30, 40-ish. And yeah, that's probably due to the fact that, you know, these people actually have the money to acquire art, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, same thing when I was a kid, you know, when I was a little kid and I had, you know, like a 25 cent, you know, a week allowance or whatever. I had a little Hershey's cocoa can, you know, with a slit in the top, and I'd put my little quarter in it, you know, and I'd save my quarters or save my change my parents would give me or whatever. And, you know, we would go to Walmart or Kmart or whatever store my mom had to go shopping in, and I would run straight to the toy aisle. And, you know, if I had enough change, I would buy a G.I. Joe figure or a Star Wars figure or something, and they were $2, you know. And today that same figure is $28, right? So if I'm a 20-year-old kid who's fresh out of high school or college or whatever, and I'm working at the local coffee shop for $15 an hour, you know, am I really going to pay 2 hours worth of my life to buy an action figure? Probably not, you know? So you got to have a little bit of disposable income because this shit adds up quick, you know, especially if if you're starting your life and you're trying to save money for a house or get married or, you know, even just pay the rent, whatever the case may be. You know, if you're working for 15, 16, 17 bucks an hour, I mean, it's very difficult to let go of, you know, 2 hours of work in the course of the day to just get one action figure. It just doesn't make sense, right? So you've got to have that disposable income.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the difference between, you know, trying to make money with NFTs and actually collecting, right? But let's jump a little bit into the Seven Dawns event. I think, how many pieces are ready? I think you mentioned you got Anashi's piece, right?
Yeah, Anna had sent a piece. One other artist sent a piece. And so yeah, so we're waiting on pretty much all of them at this point still. And I basically just asked for people to submit their work as soon as they could. You know, obviously it's the holidays, so things are going to be a little slower. You got family, blah blah blah. So I'm not trying to pressure people into, you know, getting me stuff. I just ask that they have it to me, you know, no later than December 23rd, because obviously I want to take time with family and my wife over the Christmas holiday, right? So it's that's kind of the deadline. So I'm not really expecting anything until maybe late this week or early next.
Yeah, well, like if I look at the artist list, I think Daria made a comment today that she is like in full creativity mode right now and is creating the piece. Looking forward to see what she does, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Would love to see Anna's piece, of course. Haven't seen it yet. I think we've seen Sophie's piece, Sophie's piece,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, also Maria. Like Maria, obviously, like she's under pressure, right? Like she told us already that she's kind of getting the pressure, and I can't wait to see her piece. I'm like, what did I see today? I think who was it? Top Meow. Did you tell her to create a male piece? Was
Yes.
that accurate?
Yes.
Yeah, and it was different to what she does usually, right?
Yes.
And this is what I love to see from artists. I think I said that before, and I would love to see something different from Maria. From well, Daria is very has a big variety of art that she creates, but is Anna Shee's piece? I haven't seen it yet. Is it something when I see it, would I be able to say that it's from her without knowing?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, you've seen enough of her work to know that it's her style. It's a hand drawn
Hmm.
piece. It's really beautiful. I'll have to share it with you, but yeah, you would definitely know it's her. I would think. I mean, well, after you've seen a couple of her pieces, her style is so definitive. There's no doubt that it's hers.
Awesome. Looking forward to see it. And of course, I've fallen in love with Muna Luna. I think I think you acquired a piece from her as well. She's awesome. Like
Yeah.
she's great. Her art style is so good. Oh, two already.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll definitely need to get one as well. And yes, she obviously agreed to get her art minted onto Solana, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. She's again, like you know, with everything, every idea is a sell, right? So she's one that I had to go back and forth with a bunch and explain, hey, this is what I'm doing, blah blah blah. You know, I still give you credit. You know, I'm going to give you full metadata, the whole nine. And once she understood, she's like, yeah, I get that. And she's like, yeah, no problem. Let's do it. So I got the first piece, the Among the Bears piece, which is one of my favorite fine art pieces, I would say. And then, of course, I just bought another piece from her. I forget the title of it, but it's super cool. It's a chick sitting on a couch. The couch is on fire. I have to look up the name of it, but yeah, I love her work. It's amazing, and of course, she's doing the faceless figures as well, which is really cool because it kind of aligns itself with what we're doing at Goodfellas. So, I really like her execution on that. It's really cool.
Do you know is she American or
I
where's
don't
she from?
know. I do not know.
Not
I
even.
haven't had a chance to like dive into everyone's world yet. But yeah, I don't know if she's American or not.
Oh, so you don't get an idea from the way she writes?
She writes perfect English, but I mean, in this day and age, you can run your language through AI and it'll spit out perfect language in a different language. So
Didn't you was it your post? I think you did watch any kind of TV show that has like British English
yeah,
as it, yeah, right? How was it called?
it's called Pennyworth. It's Alfred
Penguin,
Pennyworth
yeah.
was you know, the famous butler from the Batman stories, right? So this is sort of Alfred Pennyworth's origin story, and I've seen two seasons. I think there's a third season about halfway through. But yeah, it's really cool, and the way that they speak, the way that they've kept the language and the idioms native to like 60s British English is very different. And a lot of the words I had to look up. I'm like, I don't even know what that word means. Like, what is it? What is he trying to communicate? And then you look up the word or the phrase and it's like, oh, okay, I get it, you know? And so, I mean, there's a ton of different idioms that I was exposed to that I had no idea what they meant. And it's so funny because, you know, even though English is fairly ubiquitous language. I mean, most people know that they have to speak some form of English to at least do business in the world. So, you know, I mean, with it being as ubiquitous as it is, you would think that you've heard most of the idioms, especially from your mother country, because obviously a lot of Americans have their origins in Europe. So, but yeah, like the usage of the words completely different, and the phrasing is completely different, and a lot of the verb conjugations is completely different. So it's really cool the way they did the show. I think they did a good job of keeping it fairly accurate to the era.
Yeah, when I read that post, I was actually wondering whether you guys are able to understand everything or have to look it up, or if you're like, I know what it means and I know that it's British and we don't use it here, but I know the meaning, right? But you said you had to look it up, right?
Yeah, I had to look up quite a few things.
Tosspot, for example.
Tosspot, yeah.
Boffin, blot.
Yeah. Blot.
Chinwag.
To
Yeah,
blot is
funny,
to kill
man.
someone, yeah. To blot.
Yeah, funny.
Blot them out, yeah. Which makes sense when you think about it. It's sort of poetic the way that a lot of the phraseology is used, especially when it's delivered from like an Irish accent or a Scottish accent, because the words are so sing-songy. But yeah, to listen to the characters deliver the lines and say different things like "argy bargy" or "gercha." Like what the fuck does "gercha" mean? "Gercha" is not even a word, So you look it up and it's like, oh, it comes from a phrase. It's like an abbreviated phrase, and it's just kind of a way of exclaiming. So it doesn't really mean anything. It's just an exclamation of "okay, I got you" kind of a thing, right? But yeah, I mean, it's really cool to see how different things are incorporated. And again, like language is art, so the way that it's used in the film, or I should say the TV show, is very artfully done. And I think it looks like they took a lot of care to keep it period correct. The costumes, the clubs, the way that they did a lot of the interactions in the different rooms and the environments, you could see they put a lot of energy and effort to it. It kind of reminded me of Mad Men, if you've ever seen that show, about marketing, like in the early days of advertising. They did a really good job with the language and with the sets and making sure that everything was period correct. And, I remember those eras when I was a little kid, like going to my grandparents' house because they're stuck in that era. Like you go to your grandparents' house and everything in there is from like 20 years ago, So I go to their house and like the furniture I would see on Mad Men was the same furniture my grandparents had bought, from that era and just never replaced. So, like stuff like that. I mean, it just hits you really hard because it creates a feeling and it creates the right sort of, I guess you'd say, the right environment for you to accept that this is an actual story happening, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually quite funny because I told you that I've been rewatching Stranger Things, and whenever these kids are driving, from house to house, and I'm watching it with my girlfriend, I'm like, look, this is where Jason grew up back then, and it's actually like it's pretty cool. And you said it. I mean, I watched that show a couple years ago, and then I spoke to you, and you said that they actually captured the '80s vibe really good. And I'm like, now I see it, right? Like now it's like, yeah, actually, like I haven't been there, but it looks like I imagined it to be, and it's so cool. It's actually fun to watch. I didn't like remember it to be so good, but yeah, looking forward to see the final episodes. You haven't seen it fully, right?
I haven't seen the most recent season, sorry. I watched the originals. Obviously, it's been a few years since it came out. But yeah, they did such a great job. I mean, they really did, from the hairstyles to the clothing. But the big thing that they caught was the interaction amongst the kids, because, in that era, when you were a little kid, having a bicycle was a big deal, and all the kids had bicycles, right? And they're always riding their bikes to get to one another's houses, which is something that we did all the time. Like my best friend was like, probably a mile and a half away. So when I was, 7, 8 years old, I'm riding my bike like a mile and a half from home, out in the middle of rural Georgia to get to my friend's house, and all of these little interactions, no cell phones, no quick communication. So like you might go to your friend's house 2 or 3 miles away on your bike and they may not be there. It's like, he's not at home. Knock, knock, knock. Hey, is Scott here? No, he's not here. Okay, well, I just rode all this way for no reason, right? And then, you call him on the phone or whatever, and the phone would be busy. Like you get the busy signal. maybe they had call waiting and they wouldn't click over or whatever the case may be. So you had to go and see for yourself, you know? So yeah, like all of that human interaction, going to the mall, hanging out at the mall. Like it's funny that they got the mall in like the last season that I saw where the monster was in the mall. Like all of these different things, the Metallica, yeah, the jean jacket with rock roll pins on it, you know, all that stuff, man. It was so 80s. And yeah, I think that's what's missing from youth today, like just having those interactions where you actually went out and explored the world directly, like person to person. You know, you weren't heads down in a phone kind of a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And the first interaction they have is basically when they play Dungeons and Dragons, which is like a board game. And my girlfriend was like, "That's how they had fun. Like, why are they freaking out about that game, right? Like it's like with dices and all that stuff. And it's actually like I think it's very cool, and it's so much better actually than what we have nowadays, right?
And well, they did a good job of portraying Dungeons and Dragons because Dungeons and Dragons was for nerds, you know. So like they're all the outcasts, and so they're constantly being made fun of for playing Dungeons and Dragons in those early seasons. And that's exactly true. Like if anyone knew you played Dungeons and Dragons, you were completely uncool and you were a nerd. That's just the rule, right? So they caught that pretty well. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, but the cast is really good actually, right? But yeah, good old times. What else do we have? Spaces on Friday. As you said, we got some pieces ready and delivered already. Maybe we can get an artist on Spaces and speak about it a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Today or tomorrow, I'm going to start messaging all the artists and connecting them with you. Obviously, that's kind of the next step. I'll introduce you, and you know, you can start telling them what your expectations are for them in terms of how they show up for, you know, for the mints. And I think we really need to convey to the artists that they can mint, you know, if they want to. Like I had a couple of people, they were like, wasn't sure if I could mint or not. I'm like, well, of course you can mint. Like you're a participant, right? Like you're part of the family. Of course you can mint, right? So we need to let them know that they can participate. And of course we need to let them know that we want them to promote in a certain way and continue to spread the word. And so I'll turn them on to you and connect them with you, and you guys can have those conversations. And I'm going to start jumping into some other things with some code stuff. I'm trying to get a basic little wallet viewer built because I see some of the bosses are wanting to build their families. So what I'd really like to do is get a web page set up where we could open up a particular wallet and you could drop your pieces into a specific page, and then you could see your family visually there. So that's kind of one of the things I'm going to be working on in the very near future.
Yeah, awesome. That would be cool. Yeah, with Spaces on Friday, the what is it, 19? It's actually the last space we have before the series kicks off on the Friday after that. And yeah, I think it would be great to have some artists with us and speak about their art. Obviously, we want to know about the background and the backstory and you know the descriptions artists are providing. And maybe if Anna is up, I think she is used to be on Spaces. That would be great, of course. I'm not sure about the new artists if they're willing to speak on Spaces, but I'll find out. And yeah, then it's going to be great. I think Daria would be great as well because she obviously kicks off the series, right? She's the first one on December 26th. And haven't heard from her yet, but I guess she'll be ready by Friday. I think she works pretty fast. And yeah, looking forward to get all the contacts and speak to them and yeah, have a great time leading up to the series. And I think it's going to be great, man. I think there is a great lineup. I think people are going to love it, and you know, the time after Christmas is probably going to be better than Christmas itself, right?
We'll see. I mean, you know, the whole idea behind this is not necessarily to do like, oh my God, we got to mint it out, go super fast, competition, contest. This is just about slowing down and like really accepting the fact that going into the new year, it's time to start thinking about what we want to create. And so if I know the artwork is going to be stellar because the artists are all, you know, quality creators in their own rights. I'm not worried about the art. But, you know, in terms of like promo, in terms of, sales and all the rest of it, mints. I'm not concerned about any of that. But the people who care about the art will show up in mint, and that's all I care about. So, if we need to leave mints open, we'll leave mints open. Not a big deal. If we sell out, we sell out. But the whole point is really to embrace the fact that we want to celebrate these high quality creators and what they're bringing to life going into the new year, and how that makes us feel and think about what's possible. You and I had a long conversation off mic before we jumped onto the podcast about what we need to create and what we need to focus on and how much work that is. And so this artwork in many ways is a celebration of those ideas we were talking about. Because it's easy to sit back and say, I want to do this, I want to do that. But when it comes down to actually doing the work, this is where everybody falls off the bandwagon. I made a post on Facebook the other day. I went into the gym yesterday at like 1:00 in the afternoon, and it was a fucking ghost town. Like nobody, not a single soul was in the gym, right? I was literally in there pretty much by myself. There was probably 2 or 3 old ladies on a treadmill or something, but there was nobody there. And I promise you that 90% of the people in my community need to be there. They need to be there taking care of themselves. And most of them, the ones that I'm come in contact with, will tell me all the time how much they want to get in shape and change their habits and eat better and this and that and the other thing. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm at the gym right now. There's nobody here. Every machine is open. Why don't you come and get started? But the excuse is always, I'm going to start tomorrow. I'm going to start next year. I'm going to start on Monday. And then when Monday or next year or, the new year arrives, it is, it's too crowded in here. Someone's on my machine. I don't want to be there. There's too many people here. Yeah, that's right. There's too many people here. But you know what? There's nobody there right now. So why don't you go today? Why do you have to wait until January 2nd or 3rd or whatever, right? Let's get going. So it's easy to talk, but it's very hard to deliver and start putting forth the effort. And this is really what this week is about, especially for myself, for what I want to create, what I'm creating with my wife. It's time to turn the page and do new things. Life is short, and we want to take advantage of everything that we can. And part of that is embracing what's possible. So that's what this artwork is about. And I hope people love it. I've seen a few pieces. Like I said, it's going to be beautiful. And what happens with it from there, I don't care, because the people who really do care will get the messaging. And that's really the biggest thing here. Like the art communicates. That's the big thing.
Absolutely. Beautiful words. And nothing to add, actually. Before we wrap things up, I'd just like to shout out Jen, actually. Jen is someone who acquired some sirens from Stargaze still. And I just sent her some pieces today. And she also used the swap wallet we have right now to get all the force. She's collecting force. And anyone out there who still wants to submit pieces and get your favorite number, feel free to send them to the swap wallet, open a ticket, or DM me. This is still possible, and this way we will get all the pieces out, and everyone has the opportunity to get the numbers he wants. And that being said, I think we can finish it here. Tell people to have a great week. I am looking forward to Spaces, of course. It's actually pretty weird right now because I put my headphone out and now I'm hearing myself, and this is quite weird. But yeah, looking forward to Spaces. I hope we can get Anna or maybe Luna on. Daria would be great. Maria is probably going to be there. And yeah, we can speak art, right?
Yeah, and now that you mentioned it, I do remember Muna Luna, I believe, is Persian. So definitely not in America. I think her first name means moon in the Persian language. I think that's where her handle comes from.
Luna, okay.
Yeah, I think her first name starts with Mon. I can't remember, but yeah. I love this, looking up these little things and learning about the artist. But yeah, I think that's where Muna Luna comes from. It comes from her first name.
Yeah, usually when I set up the contracts, I get the names, the full names, and then I get an idea of where the people come from, and probably would have figured that. And Great to see. I mean, we still have to create the contracts, as of course, as you guys know. Whatever you mint in the Goodfellas ecosystem comes with IP rights, and yeah, awesome. Hope you guys have a great week. Any last words, Jason? Anything I forgot to mention?
I don't think so, man. I appreciate you taking the time. I know we were a little bit late today, so we had a great meeting earlier, and I'm looking forward to having a good week. So let's get out of here and get it going.
Absolutely. Have a great week, everyone. See you guys on Friday. Bye bye.
Take care, guys.